Oh, Cindy, let's don't bother, you know, depends on your money. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. How are you? Or she is something different than that.
Outside.
Right there on.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call today's meeting of the Regional Commission to order. Thank you, everyone, for coming out today. Let's see, we'll start by calling the roll, and we'll do that by just going around and having everyone introduce themselves, please. So I'm Jim Wallace with the City of Salem.
Stanton with the Regional Commission and
Bill North, Roanoke County. D. Martin, Roanoke County.
Terry Green, Franklin County.
Peter Boston, City of Roanoke.
Robert Dirk, Roanoke City, Citizen Representative.
Brad Gross, Town of Benton.
Diana Eckerly Robinson, Democrat. Kristen Atkins, with the Roanoke-Alleghany Health Department. Sarah Garland, Regional Commission. Sarah Camille, Regional Commission. Sherry Dean, Regional Commission. Amanda McGee with the Regional Commission.
Kevin James with the Regional Commission. Brian Hill with, you guessed it, the Regional Commission.
From the wrong wall.
Oh, that's the not with the Regional Commission.
Pete Peters, Town of Benton.
Don Erdman, City of Roanoke.
Lee Osborne, Roanoke County.
Virginia Mullins, Elizabeth Elmore, Regional.
Thank you. Want to count for Mr. Secretary?
Yes, unfortunately, Mr. Chair, we are one probably short for a quorum this morning. We do have, read Mr. Unruh, I think we need a physical form president to participate as a voting member. So if you would like to read that statement, may have to do some, we need Brian's help on some administrative stuff to make this happen, but if you wouldn't mind reading that.
So Mr. Chuck Unruh, representing the town of Clifton Forge, has requested to participate remotely in today's meeting of the commission under the commission's policy for electronic meeting participation, allowing for remote participation for emergency, personal, or medical matters in a physical form is present. Mr. Unruh is requesting remote attendance due to a meeting schedule conflict. Unless there is an objection, we will consider the request approved by unanimous consent, but we have a little bit of a hiccup with the form.
Yes, I'm gonna ask Brian as our Roberts and kind of process guy The rules, we need a physical quorum present for Mr. Unruh to count towards quorum of the commission. We're one locality short, 5 localities represented instead of 6. The last time we encountered this, we convened an emergency meeting of the executive committee, which we do have those folks present.
There's a form of those
For the executive committee. So I believe if we follow the last process, we can convene that group and have their decision ratified at the next commission meeting unless someone shows up to complete.
right, at which point you could adjourn the executive committee meeting and then convene the commission meeting if another member shows up.
Okay, so from a process side, Mr. Hill, what did, the Chair Wallace just needs to call for, apologize, we'll get there. What motion do we need to make to have the emergency?
How many do we need for quorum?
We need 6 localities and we are 5 localities.
Yes, similar to what we did once before, I would suggest the chair call them from the first meeting for the, of the executive committee and then adopt the self-same agenda for that's presented for the committee.
So if one of our executive committee members can make action, Mr. Moore.
I make the motion that we call an emergency meeting of the executive committee in order to facilitate today's necessary items on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Need a second?
Second.
And I might add, if it can be stated, the reason why the meeting is called now and not postponed to a later date. In other words, what business must be conducted.
I'll amend my motion to say we need to adopt the budget as well as the audit results presented by Providence and Fire Department.
Hopefully that will be someone coming in to tell that.
I have a dollar to say it for another locality. Up to.
Sure, are you amenable to that change, Mr. Moore?
Yes, sir.
All in favor of the executive committee for Mr. Moore's motion? I think that motion carries.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Apologies for the gymnastics there, but we will continue to move forward with the agenda. Another one to do it simple, respond appropriately.
So did Mr. Unruh join us? Is he there?
Mr. Unruh, he is joining us. He is not a voting member until we get a 6th person in. Thank you, Mr. Unruh, for joining us this afternoon.
All right, so next we'll move on then to item 2 on today's agenda, which is approval of the consent agenda items, which includes approval of the agenda minutes from our September 26th meeting, the financial reports ending October 31st.
I move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. North.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Board comments? You get it right. Thank you, Ms. Martin. Any comments about that or all in favor? All right, that carries. Thank you. So moving on to item 3 today would be this is my remarks, the chair. So last month, members of the staff of the Regional Commission joined regional organizations on a fact-finding trip to Raleigh, North Carolina to study collaborative efforts supporting investments in the Raleigh-Durham International Airport, including runway expansion and terminal improvements. Leaders from the Research Triangle's Council of Governments, metropolitan planning organizations, major chambers, and airport leadership shared insights on legislative initiatives and private sector efforts such as the Regional Transportation Alliance's work defining the capital needs for the airport's economic role. Raleigh Airport CEO Mike Landreth highlighted successful advocacy strategies for funding. And as presented by the Blue Ridge Innovation Corridor on September 26, our region is the fastest growing in the Commonwealth. So this trip marks the start of efforts by the Roanoke Valley Transportation Planning Organization and the Regional Commission to support growth at the Roanoke-Blacksburg Regional Airport. And you guys will be hearing a lot more updates about that in the future. Also like to call your attention to next year's meeting schedule, which can be found on page 17 of your agenda packet. And then we will also be having the appointment of a nominating committee to choose someone to fill my role, as I will be stepping down after today's meeting. And we have several volunteers that signed up, but Mr. Radford has indicated that he has some other time constraints and will not be participating. So if there's someone else that would like to serve on the nominating committee, we welcome their participation.
Here, okay.
Thank you, Mr. North. You note that, Mr. Holmes?
Yes, sir.
That concludes my remarks. So with that, we'll move on to item 4, the executive director's report, and Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to thank everyone who made it out to October's annual dinner at the Harvester. We had a great night of fellowship, local music, good food, and a presentation by Tyler Hughes of the Crooked Road. I'll especially thank Vice Chair Lori Smith, who could not make it today. She has a Franklin County board meeting conflict, but she stepped into the Master of Ceremonies role ably and welcomed us graciously in Franklin County, and to our hosts, the town of Rocky Mount, for helping us organize the evening. And unfortunately, I thought I had an example of the door prize that we all got with our fantastic Harvester travel mug. So you missed out on getting one. Next month, the commission will begin its annual work program development process. So all commissioners and locality administration will receive a memo documenting our project submission process and general project guidelines. We encourage you to work with your administration and department heads on identifying local and regional needs that you can assist with. Our current work program is on the website. I'm happy to send you a copy if you haven't looked at it in a while, and we'll distribute that along with them. I encourage you to think about what do your localities need from us across a range of transportation, economic development, community planning. As always, we try to focus on projects that meet our goal of regionalism. So we may have a conversation with you if you have an idea about how that might be able to be scaled up. But all your administrators and department heads will be receiving those early January. If you have questions, please reach out to me so we can start that project development process. Also, please save the date, the next regional commission orientation session. We'll send some information out on this, but this will be held February 13th at 3 p.m. Both an in-person and virtual option. So this will be an opportunity for new commissioners. We know we'll have some, as well as new elected officials, new staff, anyone who would like to learn more about what we do at both the commission and the TPO. We encourage them all to attend. I think last year we had more TTC members and local planning staff attend than we did have new commissioners, which is great so everyone kind of knew how to do this. So we will send out a meeting invitation in the coming weeks, but I want to make sure I got that. And then finally, we do know, as Chair Wallace just noted, after the recent elections, there will be some changes in our so we do want to take an opportunity to thank our outgoing commissioners, Stephanie Reynolds from the city of Roanoke, Mayor Thomas Seibel from the city of Covington, and Mr. Wallace from the city of Salem. We appreciate your and their service on the regional commission, your role as chair for the last year plus, and your all's dedication to regionalism. And we do have a plaque. We always like to thank our chairs. So we're going to do a little recognition. So we do want to present thank you, Mr. Wallace, with this plaque for your service to the commission as chair and as a member. The past several years, and we're going to miss you and appreciate your time. So thank you. At the end, and I'm going to hand this to you because your sunglasses.
Oh, that's right, I forgot.
We know there'll be changes, but we're excited about the new faces on board, and hopefully we still get you involved in some way after you've had some vacation time.
I'm gonna have lots of vacations.
So thank you, Mr. Wallace. And that's it for my
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Next on today's agenda is Virginia's energy infrastructure and trends.
Actually, I'm sorry, we do have to do the audit first. Real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I crossed that
We
out.
promise we'll get to you shortly.
Thank you for keeping me straight. So we'd like to,
Oh, you'll have to bear with us.
welcome Diana Eppley that's here with us today from, RFC Consultants. Talk about the audit findings of the past year.
Good afternoon. I am Diana Epperly and I work on the audit with Corbin Stone. Corbin is partner on the job, however, he had prior obligations and wasn't able to be here today. I want to start off by saying the audit went very well. You received an unmodified opinion, which means we believe that the financial statements are materially correct. Sherry and her staff do a great job, and we had very few proposed audit entries, which those are enclosed in the packet that I left at each of your spots of the table. This year, the Regional Commission had federal expenditures that exceeded $750,000, which means that we were required to do a single audit this year. That we had no issues during the single audit, and the single audit will just vary from year to year depending on the federal expenditures spent each year. On the top page, there's a handout, and it's the financial summary data of the Regional Commission over the last 10 years. And I'd like to go over it if you guys don't mind. At the top, if you start at the top, you have your current assets. Current assets for fiscal year 2024 increased approximately $758,000. The increase relates, well, current assets are actually, they are cash or other assets that can be liquidated within, converted to cash in 1 year. The increase relates to an overall increase of cash of approximately $134,000. And then there's an accounts receivable that is to be reimbursed by Virginia Housing of $589,000. Non-current assets is primarily your building less the depreciation. It's noted that the value that you would receive from the building and land if you were to sell it today is greater than what's being shown because of depreciation expense. It increased approximately $224,000. That increase is related to the elevator repairs that you guys, I'm sure, are aware of. As of June 30th, those were $156,000. Current liabilities, like current assets or items that can be liquidated within 1 year, they increased approximately $831,000. The increase relates to an accounts payable related to the Virginia Housing Project of $559,000, and that's offset by the receivable that is due from Virginia Housing at June 30th. In addition, the Regional Commission received Virginia Opioid Abatement Authority funds from the city of Roanoke of $500,000 this year, and as of June 30th, $304,000 was unspent. And so that's being shown as unearned revenue, which basically means that if that money is not spent on that specific project, it has to be returned to the city of Roanoke. Your long-term liabilities stay the same, and that is made up of your accrued leave. You can look at the items that highlighted blue. That is your unrestricted net position. And if you look from 2015 to 2024, it's slowly and gradually increased. When compared to 2024, it's actually almost doubled, which is a good sign. Current ratio for the Regional Commission is approximately 2%, and current ratio is just current assets compared to current liabilities. We typically prefer anything over 1%, preferably 2%, so you guys are right there in the ballpark. The next item in your packet is the letter with those charged with governance. This letter we would use if we had any issues during the audit. And like I said before, Sherry's great to work with and gives us everything that we need. So we had no issues. You guys get the boilerplate letter, as we say. In this letter, we also enclose significant estimates in the financial statements. And for those, that's the depreciation expense related to the assets and then the discount rate related to leased assets and lease payables. So I'm going to stop here and see if you guys have any questions.
Feel free to speak up. Anyone has questions, Ms. Everly? You did a great job of explaining it. There's no questions.
Thank you. There's no questions. I've left my business card and Corbin's business card. Feel free to reach out to us at any point if you have questions throughout the year. And it was our pleasure to work with you guys again this year. Thank you.
Ms. Oakley.
And Mr. Chair, since we are having an executive committee meeting, the executive committee already met and approved this audit, so we'll simply have to revisit this at the next meeting. So we've already handled it.
Thank you. Now we can move on to hearing about Virginia's infrastructure and energy trends. We'd like to welcome Mr. Paul Nestor here today, who is currently President and CEO of RGC Resources, a NASDAQ-listed company and parent of Roanoke Gas Company and RGC Midstream. Prior to his current role, Mr. Nestor served as Resources Chief Financial Officer from 2012 to 2019. Before joining Resources, Mr. Nestor was the Chief Financial Officer of a small defense contractor, and prior to that, held a variety of accounting and finance positions with 3 Fortune 500 companies. Mr. Nestor currently serves as the Chairman for Total Action for Progress and the Roanoke Regional Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Nestor also serves on the boards of the Roanoke Regional Partnership, Virginia Chamber of Commerce, and Virginia 811. Mr. Nestor is an advisory board member of the American Gas Association. He holds a Bachelor's of Business Administration and Accounting from Radford University and a Master's of Business Administration from the University of Richmond. So welcome, Mr. Nestor.
Thank you so much, Chairman Walls, for those kind words, and I appreciate the opportunity to join you today. And thank you to Jeremy for extending the invitation. I was actually hoping Corbin would be here. At my prior company, Corbin was our audit partner, and compliment you on Robson Farmer Cox. They're a fine firm, been around a long time, do very good work. So, Jeremy asked me just to give you an update on some of what Roanoke Gas has been doing for the last few years and presently doing. We're going to do that. We're also going to talk about the energy landscape in this region and now in the state of Virginia. If you've been following the news over the last few days, and we're going to talk about the J-Lard report at the end of the presentation that came out earlier this week. Data center growth and electricity demand and energy demand is the flavor of the day. It's really remarkable. 12 months ago, had any of you heard any of this, anything about any of this? Not us either, really. Earlier in 2024, we started to receive some inbound inquiries on natural gas, electricity generation from natural gas. We quickly learned it was from data center type parties. So that was around February of this year, a little bit before it hit the popular press. By the summertime, as you all know, it was in full force, and it's gathering steam almost every day. So with that, maybe a little just background about our company. Jim mentioned in his remarks, we are publicly traded, NASDAQ listed. We're celebrating our 30th year on NASDAQ, but Roanoke Gas, our natural gas utility, traces its history to the founding of the city of Roanoke. We just completed our 140th consecutive year of operation, and there's only one entity in Roanoke that's been operating longer than us. Anybody have a guess? Roanoke College is not a bad guess. Norfolk Southern, not Norfolk Southern, it's Okies. Our good friend, Sam Okie and his family, they have us by about 13 years. So we're a little bit older than Roanoke and the railroad. We do have 2 subsidiaries. The other subsidiary is RGC Midstream, and that is the entity that we made our investment in, the Mountain Valley Pipeline. We'll talk about MVP in a little bit. As we travel around the country, we have shareholders in all 50 states, and in fact, a few foreign countries. It took us a while to help people understand, in some cases, where Roanoke was. A lot of people would confuse us with Roanoke Island, as you can imagine, down near Mania. And we finally figured out we needed to put a map that show the interstates, which was helpful. And then if we put the VT logo on there, and I call that the Michael Vick effect, people said, oh, you're near Virginia Tech and Blacksburg. Yes, we're about 30 miles from Blacksburg. And it was just helpful in explaining our geography. This shaded green area is our current service territory of Roanoke Gas. And as you can see, it's very concentric to this region, and in fact overlaps with many of the localities that you, the regional commission, represent. We go about halfway into Montgomery County. This is Botetourt County. A lot of people ask, why isn't this part of Botetourt County shaded? That's primarily national forest. There's no people there. And we go over into Bedford County, even though there is not gas past the county line at this point. And of course, this is Franklin County just to the south of us. 64,000 customers, the great majority of them by number are residential customers, the homes here in this green area. But by volume of gas used, and we'll see this on the next slide, it is our large commercial and industrial customers, our large businesses in this region. We put this slide together a few years ago as we started meeting with elected officials, particularly at the state and federal levels. There was a lot of opposition to the Mountain Valley fossil fuel opposition, I think, as most of you are aware of, and it became a helpful way, especially with the logos, to explain the diversity of economy that requires natural gas. Steel Dynamics, of course, the cement plant, people understand that, even our Yokohama over in the city of Salem. People understand manufacturing, but they don't think about Collins, as somebody mentioned, or Roanoke College, who are two of our top 15 customers. College kids like hot water, food, and heat. And we all like those three things, right? And believe it or not, if you think about the footprints of the county and the city, particularly through their schools in particular, very large natural gas users. So this has been very helpful. Our three medical systems in the valley, which are, as we know, shining stars for what's going on here, all in the top 10, including Lewis Gale. The VA has been a top 5 customer for a long time. Carillion is our number 3 customer behind Steel Dynamics and the cement plant. A lot of people don't think about that either. A lot of hot water, a lot of laundry at a hospital, a lot of heat, a lot of food preparation, as you can imagine. We showed this slide at a recent investor event just to show the amount of investment in this region over the last 15 years. And if you add all these numbers up, it's well over $200 million. Of course, creating tax base for the localities that we serve in. But it's more than just creating tax base. It's actually creating a really strong system, a safe system, a reliable system. We have an outstanding safety record. Our leak data is world class. In fact, because of this investment, we've just about removed any leaking pipe. If you go back again to 1883, when the system was first started in the city of Roanoke, we don't believe we had wooden pipe like you see in Baltimore and Washington, D.C., but we're just a little more modern than that here. We did have cast iron and bare steel, and that was prone to leak. We finished replacing all that in 2016, which was a monumental achievement. But we continue to invest approximately $20 million a year as we expand service and upgrade our infrastructure. Many of you may have seen some of the press. This was really a great partnership here with the Western Virginia Water Authority. We have in operation now a renewable natural gas facility. And in fact, we believe the first one east of the Mississippi to be taking methane released from sewage and capturing it and conditioning it and making it a pipeline quality to, again, be used in homes and businesses. Again, just an outstanding project. We invested about $7 million for our facility you see here. Water authorities invested approximately $15 million to rehab their digesters to help capture all this gas. I didn't put this picture in the slide deck, but when we did the groundbreaking for this project, there's a picture of Mike McAvoy and I together, and behind us, there's this thing that looks like almost a train whistle. And does anybody know what that may be? It's a flare. All the gas that was coming off of those digesters was flared every day, all day long, because there was nowhere for it to go. And in fact, this is a common occurrence if you're in Texas or in North Dakota where they're doing oil exploration. There's so much natural gas associated with that oil, a lot of it is flared. And there's images from space, you can Google that. It's really an opportunity. Again, we'll talk about it at the data center, with data centers in a minute. So thrilled with this project because we're capturing all those emissions now, making it usable. It's been really, really good. Maybe just to take a minute and step back for a minute about the energy we have here in Southwest Virginia and where does it come from. This is a map of the natural gas pipeline network. As you can see in the eastern half of the United States, you don't see Florida and you don't see the entire Northeast, but you get a sense this is obviously Texas and Louisiana. The star would be the Star City here, North Carolina. And one thing you may notice, there's not a lot of these little colored lines, right, in our part of the world. In fact, North Carolina almost devoid, South Carolina a little bit better, Georgia a little bit better, not very much. There was a reason for that. The long haul interstate pipelines that serve Roanoke, coming all the way out of East Texas and the Gulf of Mexico area, were built after the Second World War, right? So if you think about North Carolina, South Carolina, and certainly Southwest Virginia, we were pretty rural in the 1950s, right after the war. So there was not impetus to spend money to, run pipe, if you will, to those areas. It just wasn't needed. The people were not there. These pipes, again, all constructed approximately 60 or 70 years ago. Two primary pipes serve Roanoke. Go back here. One known as the East Tennessee Pipeline, built in the early 1960s. The other, a Columbia line, as it's known, that was built in the early 1950s. Very old. The dogleg blue line is the Mountain Valley Pipeline. And if you zoom in a little bit back to our area, you can see the East Tennessee line, which terminates in Roanoke. It's literally an 8-inch pipe. When it leaves Blacksburg, if you've ever been to the New River Valley Mall and you've been to Lowe's over there, Peppers Ferry Road, in that area, the East Tennessee line runs right under all that. And it has, again, since 1960. Now, many of you have been around a long time. You remember what that was. Anybody remember what that was before the mall went in? The Walmart and all that? Virginia Tech owned it. It was a farm, right? They traded that property in the early 1980s. Ray Smoot, that's a great history to ask him about. But anyway, it was farm property that became highly developed, highly valuable, but that pipeline has run under it since the 1960s. There's a line that comes through Botetourt called the Gala line off of this Columbia line. It interconnects here to a little place called Gala right at the James River. These lines were built by Roanoke Gas Company in 1952 and 1958, respectively. So again, quite a bit of aging infrastructure. The green line is the Mountain Valley interconnecting over here with Transco. A lot of people are amazed that our great industries and economy here are served by these old little pipelines. Just amazed by that, but it's very true. Talking about Mountain Valley a little bit, just a reminder of who the partners were in the joint venture. These are all publicly traded companies, very large. NextEra out of Florida, Con Ed out of New York. AltaGas was formerly Washington Gas Light out of Washington, D.C. Alta acquired them 5 years ago. They're Canadian. EQT out of the Pittsburgh area. And then the little red caboose, RGC Resources. But again, Mountain Valley is a 42-inch pipe. Again, think about East Tennessee, 8-inch, the Columbia line, 20-inch, Mountain Valley, 42. 3 compressor stations that can flow 2 billion cubic feet of gas a day. We'll talk about that more in just a moment. Just a reminder of the map of the Mountain Valley Pipeline. It starts near Bridgeport, West Virginia, just off of Interstate 79, actually, below Morgantown. Comes right through West Virginia, and again hangs a dog leg at Peters Mountain, and comes across and terminates there at Pennsylvania County. You can see the 2 Roanoke gas interconnects there. This was the last weld of the pipe, actually, just off Route 460 at what's known as the Apgar property, if you recall that area there at Elston and Lafayette. And the pipe has been flowing gas since the middle of June. 2 people a week ask me, when's the pipe going to be done? Some of that may be habit because it took so long to get it done. And we said this all along when it was completed and the dirt covered the pipe up. You won't see it. The gas is flowing. You won't even know. And that's truly what's happened. People really don't know. And that's the way we want it, obviously. We're really happy about that. But it's been in operation. We've taken gas every day since June 14th. Franklin County, let's talk about this a little bit. And I hate Ms. Smith cannot be with us. We've had the opportunity to meet with her and give update on the project and talk about economic development in Franklin County due to Mountain Valley pipeline. Gas is in Franklin County as of today. Hello, come on in. This pipe is completed. There's a business there, Stick Pack, in the industrial park that's using natural gas now. We're thrilled about that. In regular contact with the Roanoke Regional Partnership and the county about economic development opportunities in the county now that Mountain Valley is there. We are also working with the town of Rocky Mount and the county again on serving Rocky Mount. This is a photograph of the interconnect, or the gate station as we call it, with Mountain Valley in the Summerview Business Park, approximately a $2 million investment made for that station. A little bit more about Rocky Mount. We changed the color of the pipeline. It's purple in this picture, but here's Rocky Mount. Here's Route 40, if you're familiar, leaving Rocky Mount, headed toward the Union Hall Pinhook area part of the lake. We're contemplating another interconnect with Mountain Valley and running pipe into the town there, serving the town. So we engaged an engineering firm to help us with that study and that process. And again, working very closely with the localities there. Pretty excited about that opportunity. Maybe a little bit about natural gas. Again, some of this goes to what you may hear on occasion in the popular press. Is it coming or going? I like this chart. You can see it starts in 1950 and it goes through last year. The chart's only going up in terms of consumption, and this is consumption in the United States. And in fact, in 2023, 9 out of the 12 months set all-time consumption records. And this data will be updated shortly for 2023. It looks back, but it's been the same for as long as I can remember. Nationwide, 500,000 to 750,000 new customers every year. What's interesting when you look at it by state, California is actually number 2 there. That's a little surprising due to some of their policies. Some of that's just by virtue of the math, right? The sheer number of people there and the development there. But they have the second most customers. You can see Texas way ahead of everybody, mainly due to in-migration, obviously. Virginia, here in the top 20. I think this says 1 consumer per minute. That's another neat way to think about it. We're going to get into this a little more. Natural gas for electric power continues to grow. So as coal plants, particularly in this part of the world, have been retired, by and large, they are replaced with natural gas plants. And that's all great. It's cheaper, it's cleaner. does incredible things for the environment. If you look at the emissions reductions in the United States over the last 20 years, the preponderance of them have been due to coal to natural gas conversion. So great story. It really is. A lot of different industries are using natural gas to create electricity. You can see some examples here: healthcare, casinos, manufacturing. We've talked about a few of these. But let's talk a little bit about the data center phenomenon. It is very, very real. Again, if you saw the press Monday from the release of the JLARC report about data centers in Virginia, I encourage you. It's publicly available. They've got it's a 10-page summary. That really gives you a good sense of the report. 155-page report, 77-slide PowerPoint. So it's all you want on this, but it's actually very well done, very thorough. And we'll hit a couple of the highlights here. This graph is from that report, and it's showing electricity demand, and it gives a couple of flavors of that. In theory, if there were no data center demand, electricity demand is going to increase by 15%, a pretty strong number. And then you get into half of the data center's demand and just the wide open, as it says, unconstrained demand here. You can see the sharp moves on these curves. Couple of excerpts from the report, and it does give you a flavor of how much energy a data center uses. Maybe just one quick comment. That's a picture of a data center. They're just a box. I don't know if anybody's seen a data center or looked them up on the internet. There's nothing interesting about them whatsoever. They're just boxes. They use a lot of electricity, and the report did not get into this. I think this is one place that they use tremendous amounts of water.
Yeah.
Water, lots and lots of water. And the reason for that is, as I understand it, there's so much computing power in there and so much electrical setup, the static electricity, and they run misters. I always think about it, if you've been out west to Phoenix or any of these places and you sit outside and you have a nice mister blowing on you, well, those things run nonstop to keep the static electricity down. Tremendous water consumption. So, when you read in the paper and it talks about the places that have electricity and that don't, and the places that are denying data centers and accepting, they don't talk about the water side of it. If you don't have water, the data center folks aren't interested. Obviously, you got to have the electricity too, but without water, it doesn't go. But a little sense of how much energy these use. Small 18 megawatt data center, equivalent to 4,500 homes, or 60 larger office buildings, or a mid-size automobile assembly plant, which we have some of those in this area, right? Think about Dynex, Mack Trucks, Yokohama. Some of those are even larger auto assembly plants. My understanding, and from the contacts we've had, there's not a data center that's interested in this region that's 18 megawatts. They're all 200 to 300 megawatts up to 1 gigawatt, which is 1,000 megawatts. So this is interesting, but not relevant, is what I would suggest. This is on the very low end of the scale. The 1,000 megawatt is a little more in the ballpark of what these folks are talking about. So what's 1,000 megawatts? You take Virginia's largest nuclear reactor, that's in Lake Anna, owned by Dominion. They have 2 reactors there, but the largest of the 2, when it's doing well, produces 950 megawatts. So we're talking about one of these data centers requiring more than Lake Anna number 1. Another excerpt from the report, this was in, I believe it was in the Cardinal News article, about the number of natural gas plants that would need to be built in Virginia. We're talking just in Virginia. We're not talking about around the country or other places. It would be one 1,500 megawatt or 1.5 gigawatt plant every 2 years for 15 consecutive years. So we took a call yesterday from the governor's office. Can you explain this to us? And how much natural gas is in the Mountain Valley Pipeline? And is there enough? Their question was actually, it started more simple than that. Is there enough gas in the Mountain Valley Pipeline to support those plants? No, not even close. Not even close. Mountain Valley Pipeline's big, 2 billion cubic feet a day, which we put that in decatherms. That's 2 million decatherms a day. One of these plants requires 250,000. So if all the gas in the Mountain Valley went to these plants, it would supply 8. That's if it went to all of them, but it's not working that way. We're using that gas to power industry, power homes, and heat homes, and do some other things. So not even close. So you step back from all this, and it's a wall of numbers, and it's a wall of physics, if you will. Just the sheer physicality of what's being discussed here. We've got a gap, right? Supposedly all this energy demand, but no way to meet it. Really, no physical way to meet it. And the policies that are currently in place, and the report addresses this in Virginia in particular, don't allow it. The Virginia Clean Economy Act passed by the General Assembly in 2020 actually shows us having less electricity demand and less ability, if you will, by closing fossil fuel power generation and or limiting nuclear, of addressing that demand. So the policymakers have a reckoning here, right? How do we, as we learned in Econ 101, right, get the supply and demand curve to cross, right? That's the discussion, really. How does that happen? Everyone's working on it, thinking about it, but haven't really come to a great place on that right now. I'll leave you with some relief, though. We're truly fortunate in our part of the world. I'll go back to this map, that the pipeline did get finished, and we have abundant natural gas and cheap natural gas in this area. It is going to propel economic development, I believe, for decades to come. Will we see data centers here? Maybe. There's been, 30,000-foot conversations about that. The folks that are in this game realize the amount of energy that is passing through that pipe every day. And this region is well positioned. We have a great, partner in AEP and ABCO, if you will. They do wonderful work here. And what's the other thing this region's known for? Water. We've got a lot of water here, more than a lot of places. We've got great water. So we have some of the ingredients. This is my opinion. Whether they all come together or not, again, there's a lot of folks in this room that will play a part in that through their respective bodies, our General Assembly, our Virginia Economic Development Partnership. Certainly some measure of federal policy may make a difference. So I think you get the sense. It is more dynamic than it's ever been. Barbara, normally we're just stoogey old utilities, right? And that's not been the case for a long time, and it's certainly not the case right now. With that, happy to entertain questions, preferably easy questions. Discuss anything. Yes, sir, Mr. North.
Very interesting. The JLOC report on data centers. Someone in our office showed me a copy of it. And I said, yeah, read the intro, then the executive summary, and then the conclusion. Otherwise, it's a pretty thick document, 150 pages, that say. Some news clips of late have been coming out of Richmond about preempting local authority with respect to solar, which also is, and before even making that statement, Virginia is importing energy today.
Yes.
So, and Virginia, because of its attractiveness in the northern Virginia counties of Prince William and Loudoun, have got like data center alley up there now. And I think to grow that or to incentivize those companies that are located there, like Microsoft and, whoever else is in the market, we gave up, or localities gave up sales tax.
Correct.
It had to be authorized by the General Assembly to give up that sales tax for the economic benefit of them they're locating there. In fact, just as an aside, over $904 million has been uncollected for transportation which is just one set of numbers for transportation because of the data centers. Now they're spreading so far up there that, to your point, I wouldn't be surprised that in time that there's some interest in parts of this area, but the topography could be challenging in some areas here.
Yeah.
In the Roanoke Valley and in New River Valley as well.
Yeah, and I think comment on a couple of those items that you mentioned, and I forgot, I said electricity and water are requirements, of course, but the other thing, what comes in and out of data centers, that fiber trunk, right? And that's part of the reason Virginia is well positioned along the fiber network, and of course, as you know, along the two major hubs that exist between Washington and Atlanta, and that hub from Atlanta goes west toward Dallas. So Virginia, as it always has, right, if you go back to the founding of this country, has advantages just because of our location to that point. But your comment about sales tax is appropriate. In fact, it uses that in the report as an example of a way to halt the data center growth. I removed the sales tax exemption for those data centers. Would probably be a deterrent to the growth, and that's certainly the case. There's a little bit of a trade there, right? If the data center comes and let's pick a number, makes a $500 million investment, the property tax, other additional taxes associated with that are very real to the locality. Again, this is back to where it's complicated. The other thing I want you all are more versed in this, and the talk about removing localities' ability to approve an energy project, particularly a renewable energy project, it feels like to me a big deal, right? For those that aren't as familiar with that, the history plainly in Virginia over the last 2 or 3 years, and this Virginia Clean Economy Act requires a certain amount of renewable energy, and solar and wind are a big part of that. Those projects cannot get cited, permitted, approved, and built. Just the local opposition has been pretty fierce to those projects in the last 2 or 3 years. The state legislators recognize the challenge there, and in the spirit to meet the law that was passed, that Virginia Clean Economy Act, there's discussion of removing a locality's ability to approve a project like that. I think that's a big deal, not per se just the solar, right? It's just to me the precedent of governance there at the local level versus the state level. We could probably go for drinks and talk about that till midnight and debate that. But I just mention it because you mentioned it. I think it is something obviously you all are probably watching in your roles. It's very, very significant.
The political conservative PAC that supports the Energy Right Initiative, which is going all over the state, talking to all the counties, cities, and towns to raise the awareness and interest in small energy projects. Now, we got one in Benton Mountain, it hasn't been built yet. Land hadn't been cleared, but it's 4 megawatts, not a big one. But it was located there by a North Carolina firm. And I said to him, so why did you pick the side of not a flat area, like up in Northern Virginia? Well, because it was close to the energy grid, right? And because of its slope in relation to the sun. So they had done their homework, and so if they got approved by the Board of Supervisors, small project. But there are some opposition in some areas, and that's what's raising the specter of of removing the local ability to approve these things. Now, Virginia is a Dillon state. And whatever the General Assembly says, we can't be more restrictive than what the General Assembly says. And it is what it is. So, and we are a net importer of energy. And we're even more of a net importer now because you got all the data centers up north. And so it'll be challenging for them to locate in this area unless we have, you know, the water authority and the Appalachian Power can handle that load and demand on electricity. But by the same token, they are, from what I've read, very beneficial to the revenue stream of local governments. And which is why they're so enticing.
It's at a 30,000-foot level, and John Bolt can probably articulate this better than I, but they are attractive from a revenue stream level. They do create a few number of jobs, but very good jobs, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But they're attractive to a lot of locations because there's no traffic associated with zero traffic. You don't have to do major road improvements. You don't have big 18-wheelers and things of that nature, but you're still generating the tax revenue. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
No, you're correct. And the biggest thing that they produce is property taxes.
Yes.
And that's something that every locality in this Commonwealth knows and wants one to show up. It's cash cow. One of the things I wanted to talk about, just I represent the city, we're one of your bigger customers, is how do you shield the customers from increasing energy costs due to data centers?
Yeah, that's a great question, and the report talks about that very, very specifically to electricity, but to your good comment, it could relate to natural gas potentially if, in fact, hypothetically, a data center using natural gas from Mountain Valley through Roanoke gas to the data center. We're working on that, and the report talks about that. Pardon me there. The report talks about that they probably would be in their own rate class. In other words, they would have to pay for the infrastructure to serve them, and their rate would be unique to them. And that feels right to me, because to your great question there, I think on average, if it makes sense across these myriad of variables, and it is complex, I think we have the sense of that for the data center to locate here. To me, the customer shouldn't be harmed, they should only be helped. Maybe a slightly different way to answer it, when a large economic development customer, someone, and let's use maybe Alltech's an example who's been expanding, a couple of these others, maybe the Trivium can plant that's now in Roanoke County. Ordinarily, the way the rate making model works is when they come in, it actually lowers residential costs because they're absorbing more of the cost. So our thought would be that a data center would certainly be that, but just more magnified. I don't know that the electricity model works that way. The AEP guys would have to answer that, but that's a real concern across the state. Yeah, great question.
So with the new Mountain Valley pipeline, do we have a chance of obtaining a gas-fired turbine generating plant in your footprint, do you think, in the future?
I think there's a great chance. Now, again, it gets back to siting and permitting, right? And to Bill Moore's comment about takeaway, you got to be able to move that electricity, right? So that requires a certain amount of infrastructure too. But yes, sir, Chairman Wallace, the energy is here to do it. Now, I don't think you can do 5 or 6. Could you do 1 or half of 1 or some version of it? Yes, I think that's physically possible. Whether you could get it cited, permitted, approved, built, that's another question, of course.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Nestor today?
Very informative.
There's a lot of electric substations that are coming in. And, you know, some people are concerned that there might be some effect to humans and plant growth underneath the flood.
Yeah, I'll admit, Barbara, I'm not an expert on that, but I've walked to McAfee's Knob, I don't know, 20 times. You've done that hike too, as you know, you pass under the transmission line there, right? Do you
Right.
tingle when you walk under it? Okay. It depends on the day, right? And it depends how heavy the air, all kidding aside, right? But it's buzzing and nothing. I'll admit, I don't know all the science about that.
So it's out back, that not very many people are affected by that, but they're putting these
Mhm.
substations in higher density residential areas.
Yeah, it's interesting, maybe to conclude here, prior to this data center boom, the talk was on EVs and being able to serve EVs. And in fact, our friends in the Northern Virginia area where there's just a higher density or acceptance of EVs, they were struggling with just their infrastructure, Barbara, and they were talking about having to build new substations and other transformer technology to be able to provide the distribution electrical infrastructure to just to serve EVs. And I don't have this in the slide, but I've got another slide deck on this. You can picture a cul-de-sac with 6 homes, and if they add one electric vehicle in 4 of those 6 homes, they've done all the studies on how much electricity load that is. But it required, I would call it magnificent infrastructure to support. That's a whole nother discussion, yeah.
It's because we need to start planning now for 20 years down the road, Mr. North. As you've indicated that the decisions that we make now are going to affect what's going to happen in the future.
You know, Robert, you're absolutely correct. And we got a lot of things going on around here, like the airport. We just talked about in the previous meeting. It's going to take a while, but it's going to take everybody in this area being on the same page. You know, everyone, we're going through this in Roanoke County. Anybody that read the newspapers the last few days on the news, you go to Pogue's Mill. If you have now, because 252 of our citizens came out Tuesday night, and they don't want subdivisions built. Well, they spoke, they've been heard. What happens next remains to be seen. But pure and simple economics, we have a high demand and a low supply of housing. And that can be contributed to inflation, cost of materials, because today, let's go back to when I first moved here and bought a condo at Ridgewood Farms. I couldn't afford a house today. I'd have to go into a townhouse because it costs close to what I paid for my first house. And then I'd have to stay there a while and then move up to a higher priced house. Well, a lot of people today, young people, don't want a yard, so that suits them fine and well. But people like myself, I'm not moving out because there's not enough senior living patio homes to go to one day. When I get tired of cutting the grass and going up down the steps, the basement and forbidden. The point is, you know, change is hard. It's a generational thing. And if you don't accept change, it just doesn't help grow the economy. And if you don't accept some of this new technology with data centers and solar, it won't grow the economy. And you won't attract the jobs here that pay good wages. You'll just be ho-hum the way we've been. And hopefully we can sustain the way we've been, because if you don't sustain it, you could be one day, and I'm being exaggerating saying this, like that little town in Southwest Virginia that just dissolved itself yesterday and is no longer its own little town. That's an extreme situation, I know, but change is hard and it takes years. I just told the folks about the airport project we've been working on and how we went to Raleigh to talk to them. It has taken them probably, 20 years to get where they are today down there. And so if we don't stay here and support our local efforts like the airport and stop running and stop believing fly ROA and go every place else to catch a flight, we're not going to have growth and we're going to lose money. We're losing 50% of the flight potential today that is going elsewhere. And we got a nice airport that could be expanded one day to get bigger flights in. And no one's going to give us bigger flights in if they don't have a business reason to continue operating the bigger flights. And that means, like in the case of Kingsport, Tennessee, not Kingsport, but Bristol, the business community, because the airport can't do it because of restrictions, subsidizes a nonstop flight where it was coming from and to, but it was needed for the industry in that area. And if they don't hit the certain number of passenger levels each month, the localities have to cut a check. If they exceed that amount, the localities don't cut a check. So you got to be all in and all the same page, and it takes years.
All right.
Enough said.
Thank you.
Mr. Nestor, thank you for coming out today, and there's some extraordinary figures you put forward about energy consumption. So I think it gives us a lot to think about as a community here in the next couple of decades.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure, and I really want to thank all of you all for your service and what you do. It's for making a difference. I appreciate you, so thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I might, one final note for the reasons I asked Mr. Nestor to show up. 70% of the world's internet traffic goes through the data centers in Northern Virginia, and Loudoun County in particular does one thing. So those data centers are probably going to go somewhere, and probably going to withstand Virginia. 70% of that traffic going here. So I'm going to screen and Mr. Unruh and folks, particularly from our rural communities. I don't know. We don't know what it will look like, but the idea of preparing for those is, I think, is something we're going to have to do. So I'll plug again our work program. If there's something we can do to help us start thinking about this regionally, and the interaction, our rural communities, the demand is there, the energy going to come from somewhere, and all these phones in our hands are what's causing all this data center needs. And I think it's important for us to start thinking about that in the region. So I would appreciate Mr. Nestor for joining us and helping kind of paint that picture for us.
My colleagues in Virginia counties that represent Loudoun will tell you that they came in and took over a lot of good prime land, and now they don't have much land to build houses and subdivisions on anymore. So,
Right.
you gotta have balance, I guess. If you don't, you have a problem.
It's
Thank you.
it's complicated.
That's a good way to end it. It's not complicated.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
I hope you all have a Merry Christmas.
You too. Oh, thank you.
So,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Garland, you have a tough act to follow, so
I know.
we'll invite you forward to tell us
I
about.
get excited about
See you. Hope you're doing well. Yeah. Good. Still cold. I need my coat outside.
That's right. You'd be back real quick.
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
The only thing I could say is I'm here to present on the finishing the commuter assistance program and transportation demand management strategic plan. It's a project that started at the beginning of the year as an work plan, and it has been completed. And partly is a requirement of the Department of Rail and Public Transportation for us to receive grant funding for the Right Solutions program, which has been in operation since 2001. So we're almost going to be 25 years old. And I will say that the requirement of this plan, which, covers our entire area, was to just focus on commuter assistance program. But I took it a step further, and I really wanted to focus on what you're going to hear me saying a lot, is TDM, Transportation Demand Management. Transportation demand management is a series of strategies that encompass with the goal of reducing our carbon footprint, reducing our dependence on single occupancy vehicles, enhance our transportation, improve our roadways, improve congestion, maintain our clean air. And so there's a lot of projects that will be managed by me that will be on TDMs, and you will hear me doing one of them is the electric vehicle implementation. So just to follow that will, just so you know, that is TDM. And that's why this is important as well. But I'm gonna run through this actually really quick in the interest of time, and I also have some guests that are here for my next presentation, so I want to respect everybody's time. But we did go through this process, looking at our region, understanding our region, our service area, our population, our target market, understanding that we are about 70% urban community, urban region, and 30% rural communities. And, you know, we look at all of the statistics and demographics. We work with that committee that was comprised primarily by members of the PPC, and we also have representatives from Allegheny, and some other, and from Allegheny and Franklin County. And we work with that consultant team to accomplish this work. So, again, as I mentioned, a framework for this project is transportation demand management, manage traffic emissions, support economic development, improve employment services, and enhance transportation. So any project that encompasses this framework will be considered. Our executive committee in July approved our vision, our mission, and our goals. And so these were approved prior for us to like develop kind of like the meat and the strategies of our plan. I want to point out like our first goal was to incorporate transportation demand management into the transportation planning process at our ERC. That's what here it's done. You can check that one off the list. There will be a lot more, but you will just hear me talking. But we will continue to do a lot of our feedback that we received from our working group was, you know, increase our education and also continue to work with our localities on technical assistance. Those were things that were really appreciated from your staff, and we will continue to do. So as I mentioned, again, we need to have our target markets, and you know, you can approach this very different ways. But because how we understand our region and how we work with you all, we use this very simple target market structure. Our urban serve urban areas and our rural areas. And within those markets, we identify again through our analysis of census data and our interviews that, you know, we can serve within our urban areas, we can serve residents that are commuting fewer than 10 miles. That we can serve residents that do not have access to vehicles. We can serve urban employers. We can serve people traveling to large events and major destinations. And we can serve young people traveling to school. In our rural areas, we will be focusing on rural employers and older adults. So this is a little bit of a broader framework that what Bright Solutions has been doing up to this point. And again, so to expand the services of our TDM program, you know, commuter assistance right at the top is still one of our service areas, but we are expanding our service areas to have non-commute options, marketing and outreach, TDM planning, policy, research, and advancement. So that is all housed under our transportation group and our planning efforts. And TDM safety, access, and emerging mobility. Again, that's mostly a service that we're providing through our technical assistance and working on projects with your localities. And capacity building, so providing resources and activities that support and materials to our partners or just our partners that direct employers through TDM learning skills, etc. So those are some things that we haven't done, so they will be kind of all. This really the only purpose of this chart is to show you how each of our service areas match with our target markets and match with each one of our goals. So this is just part of the exercise of a strategic plan, and this is probably one of the most exciting parts for me, but it's just it's like, oh, I am covering everything that I'm saying that we will want to cover. But no need to read about that. So each of our service areas, we identify activities that are currently doing and new activities that we're going to do. This plan is available online. The review is actually a very nice looking document. But what I want to point out is that probably, the next, the trajectory of the implementation of this plan, what I would like to deliver to you is like, look at these strategies and see what we have been accomplishing. So for instance, and on the new activities for community assistance program, there are a couple of things that we'll be doing next spring and hopefully can get checked out. So develop a suite of employer-focused community toolkits and guides. That was definitely from the employers. We got a lot of feedback. It's like, we just need to know exactly what you do and, like have it handy and easy to have. It's not that we didn't have it. It was done, but, it has to be fresh enough. On the non-commute options for marketing and outreach, one example of something that we did just past this fall was work with GoFest to just generate a new to implement a new strategy to get people to get to GoFest without driving. And so we work with Valley Metro and we offer and we accomplish offering free fare for the Saturday of GoFest. And actually, as a result of that, there was a 26% increase in transit ridership of that day. Just so those are the kind of, quick strategies, projects that we can work with your communities, hopefully to get to see results. But we also work with the city of Roanoke on their vision for a cycle track along Jefferson Street that also generated a lot of use of bicycling to go. So that's kind of like the type of strategies we're talking about here. But our next big chapter will be working with schools and localities to promote safe and active transportation for students. That is definitely going to be one of our biggest goals to accomplish. We are already starting to have conversations with Roanoke City, and I understand that Vinton might have also some interest in talking about that. But in your localities, if you are connected with your school systems and you think, and it's not at all about just walking and biking, but there's a lot of things that can be happening to improve the access to schools for children in a safe way, or let's just make it exciting. So I definitely will love to your contacts if you are connected. And TDM planning and policy and research, again, a lot of new activities, but one of them integrate TDM into our regional planning efforts, and that is part of kind of just through this strategic plan that always check in. Develop and conduct a regional travel survey every 5 years. So as you remember that I presented last year, that was a big effort, and it's definitely actually supported the development of this strategic plan. And as a result, we will continue to do it on a systematic plan. And here I highlighted support regional localities and expanding transit accessibility to destinations in the Roanoke Valley. That was also through our stakeholder groups and interviews, something that was very prominent. I don't necessarily have all the resources to make that happen, but you all do. So that's like conversations, and as things move along, we would like to be part of the and that's kind of in a nutshell. Again, it's very, very fast. We do have grants that support our program, the RPT being the primary grant that we have used over the past years. Now that we are introducing the TDM program into the transportation world, we are also using transportation planning funds to do the planning for it. So a lot of the things that I'm doing are planning work, action items that we can develop in-house as transportation planners. But we will be looking to expand our funding sources to maybe expand on staff and all of that will be subject to your approval, of course. So I encourage you to, there's a TDM website on our website already. So that will be the transportation demand management. And in our strategic plan, I think I provided the link in your package online. So I will look at it. And I am here for you guys to actually approve my plan as because it is a grant requirement, it requires approval of.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion that we approve Ms. Garland's plan?
So moved.
Thank you.
And I apologize, actually, we're still in emergency. Oh, that's right.
Thank you, Mr. Gross. Mr. Wolf, can we get a second?
Second.
All in favor on the executive committee? That
Well,
motion
thank you
carries.
so much. That
Good
was
work.
great.
Thank you, Ms. Garland.
Good work.
Yeah.
And just stay up there and you can tell us about
Yes.
the,
So
impact award,
for
please.
that, this is the exciting part. And I have two team members with me here today. And thank you for staying. So last year, we were participating in, for 2023, we participated in the Walkability Institute through the Virginia Department of Health and Equitable Cities. It is a sponsored program, and we form a cohort in the city of Roanoke, and we were tasked to develop a project that will enhance walkability anywhere, anything, just has to enhance walkability. Our project was in Lansdowne in the city of Roanoke, and I'm gonna actually show you a video that explains the project really well, so I'm not gonna spend too much time on talking about it, but I want to share, we submitted our project for the National Association of Development Organizations, and we won one of the impact awards, so we're very proud of that. And just want to let you know that Roanoke County is now participating in that academy, so hopefully they will come up with a project as great as this. So do you think we can show this?
Yes.
Okay.
getting a photo op with our chair after the meeting. Unless you want to do it right now.
Go ahead and do it after you.
I mean, just want to present that.
Thank you.
Congratulations
And
for all
I
your
was
efforts.
gonna say, I said this in our last meeting, when we first started working on this project, Kristen didn't know anything about transportation. And then he was explaining everything like. And yes, I followed in great footsteps.
Good job. Moving on to our regional commission committee reports. I think we have a Blue Way Advisory Committee report from Kevin Jenks. Is he here today?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commission. My update is very short. Just giving an update that I will be taking over the staff responsibilities for the Blue Way Commission, and I'm looking forward to working committees. Looking forward to working with them for the coming years. That's it. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Jenks.
Sense.
Mr. Hill, you have some things today you'd like to share with us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Likewise, I will be taking over effectively the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy Committee. Be working with them, and just a couple of updates. In mid-October, we had a kickoff meeting for our 5-year update for the SEDS document, and that work is underway now. And we'll be working with a newly formed SEDS update subcommittee. And so we'll be coordinating with them to develop the document. And our time frame for that is the end of the fiscal year, roughly June 30. So you all will be seeing that for approval next year. That's all I have.
Thank you. Now, Mr. North, Legislative Committee report, please, sir.
Thank you. The Legislative Committee met on October 3rd, discussed several activities. Committee, for guidance from the September Regional Commission meeting, approved scheduling a legislative luncheon for the Allegheny Highlands, Craig, and Botetourt counties. The luncheon has been set for next week, December 18th, at the Masonic Theater. Delegate Alston will be in attendance, as well as Cody Hanshaw, legislative aide for Senator Hidd. Special thanks to the town of Clifton Forge for sponsoring the lunch and to the Masonic Theater for hosting. The committee recommended targeted media follow-up with the regional legislative agenda that we adopted. Mr. Holmes has reached out to both the Wayne Yancey and Cardinal News, as well as Jeff Sturgeon with the Roanoke Rambler, a copy of our agenda and an invitation for further discussion and conversation as necessary. The committee also recommended the development of a legislative tracker system on the commission website focused on General Assembly activity that falls within the scope of our regional priorities in the legislative agenda. Jeremy Holmes, Tori Williams, and Elizabeth Elmore have met to scope out that design, and updated website tracker and development is in progress. The committee recommended sending the agenda directly to the appropriate committee chairs in the General Assembly, so that they can know about our legislative priority card and the detailed report that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. North. Any other business today before the committee? Any other comments from commission members and or the public?
I just want to echo, thank you, Jim, for your service the last year. I look forward to your return in 4 years.
Thank you, Chair North, and I want to thank you for encouraging me to take on this role. And as I step down from the commission, I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to serve. It's been a privilege to work with such a dedicated group committed to the success of our region. And I want to wish all of you continued success in the important work ahead. And thank you again. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Oh, yeah.
All right, all in favor? We are adjourned.